No matter where you are in the world, everybody knows hummus. It's one of the most popular dips and foods that's out there in the world. And what's surprising is how fast it is to make your own hummus. Now, I usually start by cooking my chickpeas ahead of time. You can, of course, use canned chickpeas if you wish, but just a little tip, if you do that, make sure your chickpeas are nice and warm before you start the hummus. It helps everything sort of emulsify better when we're mixing it all together. Tahini, which is just a sesame paste, is another integral part of making hummus. Depending on your taste, it's usually about half the amount of chickpeas that you're using. And then I like to spice it up, which is totally optional. A little bit of cumin, a little bit of cayenne, just to give it a little tickle in the back of the throat. I almost always put a little bit of lemon juice in it, some parsley, and I don't do any oil until the end, and I add a little bit depending on my mood at that point. So, why don't we just go ahead, get started, make a little bit of hummus, and see how it goes. So I just make everything in a food processor. We're going to start with just getting all our chickpeas in there. We're going to get a start. Don't use necessarily all of the tahini at once, but maybe just enough to get it started and to get that flavor, and we're going to be checking the flavor as we go. Hummus is such an individual thing. Everybody has a little bit of different flair to it. So it's really important to just taste it as you go, as the mixing begins. We're going to get just a little touch of cumin in there, and put just a little bit of cayenne in there. I like squeezing the lemon directly into the food processor. If there are any seeds in there, just hold it over your hand to capture anything. And we're just going to try to get pretty much an entire lemon right in there. But remember, you can always add more later, so you don't have to necessarily put it all in at once. So that should get us started. We're going to give it just a little bit of seasoning. This is the salt that we're going to put in, and just a little drizzle. That should be enough to get us started again. And finally, I like putting a little bit of fresh parsley in there. No need to chop it up. Just go ahead and chuck it right into the food processor. And to get everything moving around, just go ahead and use some water. Now, if you heated up your chickpeas earlier, use that same water. Don't put a lot in there, just enough to get everything moving around. Once you get everything into the food processor, just go ahead and turn it on and let the processing begin. So it is really important to keep trying the hummus. When we get it to this stage, let's take our first taste test and see where we are. We might need to make some adjustments. Some people like it a little smoother than this, so we'll probably process it a little bit more. I like it a little bit on the smooth side. Could use just a little bit more seasoning. I think I'm going to add a little bit more tahini at this point. Now, tahini is, of course, filled with omega-6, which is quite inflammatory, so you may want to watch how much you put into it. And I'm going to add a little bit more lemon juice. Give it a good squeeze, get it in there. And now we're just going to twirl it around a little bit more. Great. Try round 2 on the tasting now and see how close we're getting to where I want it. It's getting close. To be honest, we can still do with a little bit more lemon. And we'll give it a little grating of garlic. I think that gives it a nice little kick. I like adding the garlic towards the end. If you add it at the beginning, it can be a bit overwhelming. So now we can really control how much we put in when we add it at the end. Good, and we're just going to go ahead and give it that final taste. I think we're nearly there. I think that's pretty good at this point. All we need to do now, let's just go ahead and get this out of the food processor. Great. It's looking really fantastic. Just clean everything up here a little bit. Get rid of this. And there we have my hummus in the consistency I like to have it in. Just get this into the bowl. And remember, this is completely oil-free at this point. And if you want, and if you're happy with it, now is a good time. You can just go ahead and add a little bit of olive oil. And I use, of course, extra virgin olive oil for this. So I put a couple spoons in, move it around a little bit, incorporate everything, mix it nicely. And there we have hummus made fresh, completely OMS safe, and only in a few minutes. All we have to do now, just give it a taste. It's really one of the most perfect dips we could have.